ex-boyfriend. I caught him stealing my daughter's lunch money. I can't believe they put him on the statement. Well, my lawyer objected, but the judge said it showed evidence of moral turpitude. It's their smart aleck lawyer way of saying you had bad character. For example, stealing a loaf of bread is a crime of moral turpitude. But hitting the creep isn't. Meaning what? Meaning the judge overstepped his authority, and we have grounds for an appeal. Girlfriend, you is something else. I'll start the paperwork after lockdown. I never leave the home running. Alex, I got a check from that insurance company. Oh, good. Wouldn't have happened without that letter you wrote. Thanks. Oh, that's what thank you. I'm a missing. Monica, you're really gonna be one of them $300 an hour lawyers when you get out. $5. You gonna be like my man, Johnny. She's gonna be the woman. W-O-M-A-N. That's right. You'll have it, girl. Okay. Here we go. All right. We was gonna bake you a cake, but we know you got to watch your girl is baking. Oh, yeah. So we decided to get you a special pizza instead. Just so you'll remember what's important when you get out of here. Ready? Thank you. What? There'll be no band for Alex to Monaco. You're crazy. No. Who is in here because of love? Raise your hand. Come on. Rest my case. Thank you. All right. All of us are bona fide members of the Been Done Wrong by Man Club. I got a special little anthem for all of us. It's the next little thing. Wanna get? Look at it go. First there was a rain. But then I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong and I was strong. And I learned how to go on until you're back. From my mistakes. I just love you now again. Such a change, so stupid love. I should have made you leave your key. Did you make this? No. I charged it in Nordstrom's. Look. You're an ex-con now, and you're gonna need all the help you're gonna get. Right you hear? Don't call. There's two trains I can travel. Two trains leaving today. One gonna take me home. One will carry me away.
Law report from Mendocino. Model prisoner completed law studies through the internet. Guess you must be a pretty smart woman. So tell me, Monaco, how'd you end up serving 5 years for insurance fraud?
Smart woman, foolish choices.
There are rules here, just like Mendocino. Learn them, you'll get along. Break them, you'll book yourself a rocket ride back to your cell. In case you're wondering, underneath this delightful and captivating facade, I'm not a nice man. This way, please. According to the terms of your parole, you may not consort with other criminals or leave the city. You may not stay up past 11 p.m. except for employment. Well, that's just coming up. We vote on from there.
No one, a convicted felon, can't vote.
Once a week, you will see me for formal interviews. Any prospects for employment?
Is that another trick question?
I'll set up some interviews.
I would prefer a smoke-free environment. You know, I'd like to work with women to, avoid the potential of sexual harassment. Oh, and I have an allergy to dust.
Nueve chicas tienen gripa. Nos van a enfermar todos.
Sí, de verdad, tuvo que encabronar el carcelero.
¿Y crees que eso es fácil?
Que sí estaba encerrada, mano.
Sí, pero ella necesita a alguien que ayude a recordarnos que es un verdadero hombre.
Qué lástima, cabrones. Ustedes no califican.
Whoa. Where'd you learn Spanish, lady? Talking to your Mexican nanny in Pacific Heights?
Tried Boyle Heights, East LA, Roosevelt High.
We got us a homegirl. There goes, sister. Yeah.
Sign in, please.
Are egg rolls and Chinese hot mustard a crime?
Rule number 6. All incoming items subject to search.
Anything else?
Now that you mention it. Rule number 3. All residents must submit to random drug tests.
My husband was an attorney specializing in insurance litigation. My husband was running a scam with some doctors to defraud the insurance companies. I had no idea. But the DA said that I did.
And your husband disappeared before they could arrest him.
With our daughter, Mia. I was the office manager, so my name was on a whole lot of important documents.
Right. And with the fraud insurance companies breathing down the DA's neck.
Who convinced the judge that I was lying, so...
Listen, one thing before we start. We're not talking about a
Standard skip trace here. Your husband's an attorney. He's wanted by the law. Got a picture of Mia?
Can I get that back? Because it's the only one I have of her.
Not fast enough.
Wow.
Kids can change a lot in 5 years.
I know.
Got a program that'll show you what she looked like today. Here we go.
How may I direct your call? One moment, please. Thanks for seeing me. Joel Wyckoff referred me to you.
Good criminal attorney, Joel. How can I help you, Miss Delmonico?
Alex. Well, you see, I just
Make sure these go out. It's a nice pouch, Peggy. Joel said something about getting your criminal record sealed.
Well, not exactly. I spent 5 years in prison for insurance fraud. I was innocent. It's a long story. Anyway, while I was in prison, I decided to attend law school.
Law school?
Bay City's college. It's an internet law school.
Coffee, Peggy.
Anyway, I worked really, really hard. I studied my butt off. 5 years it took me, but finally I got my law degree. Top of my class.
Congratulations.
But as a convicted felon, I can't practice law.
Well, you could try to file for an expungement or a state bar hearing.
I want a pardon from the governor.
Sir, the Miller brief. I wanted a case where the judge sanctioned the plaintiff for failure to comply by dismissing the case. I haven't found anything where the judge dismissed the case outright. Here's instances where he provided evidentiary monetary sanctions. What I think we can do is we can argue that...
I don't want to argue. I want the case law to argue for me. Mr. Monaco, I think it's commendable that you used your time in prison so constructively, but wouldn't it be easier for a young woman such as yourself to try to make a career in, say,
fashion?
Something that wouldn't be such an uphill battle?
Your firm was a major contributor to the governor's campaign 2 years ago, and he was a classmate of yours at Harvard Law School. See, pardons are about politics. I know that, and you know that.
Be that as it may.
See, the truth is that I only started studying law in prison because I just wanted to get back at my husband. But something happened along the way, and I got hooked. When I find my daughter, Mia, I'll be able to make a living. This is her birthday. I bought her the unicorn. Isn't she gorgeous?
I'm sorry, Mr. Monaco. Perhaps I can recommend someone.
People versus Hirsch.
Excuse me?
A panel of the California Court of Appeals ruled that the dismissal of the case was an appropriate sanction for failure to comply.
Never heard of it.
It was a slip opinion handed down a week ago. I usually read the slips before I go to bed. You know, after Cosmo and Vogue.
I'm impressed.
Well, that's the idea. So now that you are, it would seem time for a little quid pro quo.
After you went to work that morning, you went to Mobile, Alabama.
My sister was there. She never liked me.
You lived there for almost a year under the name of Walt Whitman.
Jason majored in English Lit.
Your daughter attended the local Montessori preschool.
She did? I always wanted her to try Montessori.
Yeah, I spoke to the teacher at the school. She said she still had some of Mia's things. I figured you'd want them, so I gave her your address. Anyway, after Mobile, there was New Orleans, Chapel Hill, and Key Biscayne. Before he left Florida, your husband transferred a lot of money into a couple offshore accounts in the Bahamas.
How much?
Almost $5 million.
$5 million? You're kidding, right? That guy would have a fit if I put premium gas in the car. How is it that you found out about all this stuff and the police couldn't?
I was a teenage hacker. Then I was a chip jock for the CCU, Computer Crimes Unit, California Attorney General's Office. Anyway, it's possible that your husband and your daughter are no longer in the U.S., which makes finding them a lot more difficult and a lot more expensive.
I have a few stocks Grandma Alex left me.
Look, I could find them tomorrow. Or it could take a year. Or it could take more than a year. I think you should consider that before you start.
Whatever it takes.
Maybe a $2,000 retainer to start.
It's the pardon book. You know, to give to the governor for the appeal.
I believe that's what you engaged my services for.
I know, but you're busy. Time is money. Besides, it's all there. Character witnesses, letters of reference.
You did all that in a week?
Heck no. Spent 3 years doing this. Now, I know that sometimes this can get a little exaggerated.
Mr. Monaco, your retainer check. It bounced.
Oh, I can explain that.
Are you aware that check fraud is a parole violation?
I had the money. I just had to write another check to Castlebaum because he used the retainer on finding out my husband has $5 million stashed in the Bahamas and my daughter goes to a Montessori
Mr.
school.
Monaco.
It's Alex. If you just give me a few days, I will find a way to cover the check.
What happens the next time? Leave quietly, and I won't call your parole officer.
Maybe I could do some work for you, some investigative research, or I could interview witnesses.
Out of the question, I already have a paralegal.
But I know the law. I mean, you even said so yourself. How am I different to anybody else around here?
You're a convicted felon, and you don't have a law license.
So easy for you, isn't it? Your Harvard degree and your parties with the mayor. You can't imagine that a person might go to jail for something that she didn't do. Because in your perfect world, that just doesn't happen, does it?
Go home.
I'm not a loser. I'm a good person, and I want to be a lawyer. And not to help my rich friends get richer, but to help people who really need it. Didn't you ever want to do that, Mr. Whitney? Or wasn't that on your schedule at Harvard Law?
Peggy, would you please call security?
Okay, I'm going. But let me tell you one thing. I would rather be me, a girl with a record, than be some rich, heartless, spoiled snob like you. Oh.
Our client is Gleason and Berkowitz. You've probably heard of them.
Not really.
They're one of the biggest accounting firms in the state. And they used to be the accountants for Coulthard.
Them I've heard of.
Well, a few months ago, they hired Gleason and Berkowitz with a year left on their contract. And now G&B is suing for wrongful termination.
Hey, I don't bite. Even though I did have to wear that mask in prison. One like Hannibal Lecter had with the little bars across the teeth.
Coulthard says they fired Gleason and Berkowitz because their accounting methods were too conservative. If we can prove Coulthard breached their contract without reasonable cause, we win our case.
And all these boxes.
Internal memos from Coulthard. We ask for relevant documents, they bury us in irrelevant paperwork. Standard legal practice. We're looking for memos that relate specifically to Coulthard's business with G&B. You'll be starting here. I understand your concerns about KSL. That information is unavailable at this time, but I will be looking into it. Mr. James Stern.
So who's James Stern?
The treasurer at Coulthard.
When did Coulthard terminate Gleason and Berkowitz?
October 7th.
This memo was dated October 5th, which means that 2 days before they were fired for doing a bad job, the treasurer said they were doing a good job.
In a big corporation like this, it's normal for the right hand not to know what the left is doing.
Has anyone tried talking to this guy Stern?
We've tried talking to all the execs at Coulthard. They keep ducking their depositions.
Shouldn't we show this to Whitney?
I will. Keep working.
Fine. Take all the credit.
Don't worry. I'll make sure Whit knows who really found it. I'm Patrick Heller, BWM's resident non-wasp attorney.
Right. The guy with the face full of palm fronds.
I bet you have that effect on a lot of men.
Look, Patrick, I'm gonna save you a little time. You're a cute guy. Nice hair. And I bet you look great naked. But I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to work. So just think of me as one of the guys.
That's gonna be a little hard.
Mr. Stern, I'm Alex DeMonico. Do you have a moment?
Yeah.
Oh, cute kids. How old?
Chris is 10. He's at the age of embarrassment. Whatever I do embarrasses him. Amber's 5.
Oh, the artist.
She thinks everything I do is funny.
5's my favorite age.
Do you have kids?
Yes.
Best thing that ever happened to me. Puts all this craziness in perspective. What can I do for you?
Mr. Stern, did you write this?
Oh, come on, I already explained this to you guys. When I wrote that memo, I didn't realize we were about to cancel our contract with G&B.
So they were doing a good job.
Of course they were doing a good job. Not like those bozos we got working for us now.
What about KSL?
What about KSM?
Well, here you say that the information is unavailable.
And what was I supposed to say? Vogler made it clear KSL was off limits. What's going on here? Does Vogler think I said something about KSL?
Why don't you tell me what you know about KSL?
Who are you?
I told you I'm
And
Alex.
who do you work for?
Verdict Whitney Morgan.
How did you get in here?
Mr. Stern, Coulthard could buy itself a lot of things, but there isn't a group big enough to sweep this under the rug. Whatever is going on here will come out.
Leave. Right now.
The best way to protect yourself is to just tell the truth.
Protect myself. That's what you people think I'm doing. I'm protecting them. Those people are like family. Like picnics. Like baseball. Spaghetti factory. Airport exit 8 o'clock. Are you aware that it's professionally unethical to talk to someone represented by counsel in an adversarial manner?
I wasn't adversarial. I was nice.
You know what could happen if Stern tells his lawyers that you accosted him in his office?
He won't. This will help our case.
Based on what legal precedent?
Body language. When I was in prison, I developed a gut for reading people.
Your prison gut is going to get me disbarred.
Oh, you gotta try the cheese toast.
Zesty and full body, with just a hint of aged Velveeta. So, you think I'm a rich, heartless, stuck-up snob?
Maybe I was a little unfair. I don't know that you're rich.
One of the most important things they taught us at Harvard wasn't just how to practice law, it was how to act like a Harvard lawyer. We had to learn how to play the game.
That's what my husband used to say. I thought it was his way of justifying his $3,000 suit. I was a pantyhose with holes in it.
I read the case. Their husband gives lawyers a bad name.
My husband gave husbands a bad name. So I figure you're single. Well, you never call and you never tell them you'll be home late.
I never did. That's probably why there are 3 ex-somebodies.
You were married 3 times.
What are you doing?
Well, people lie, they give it away somehow. And they squint or they tug at their ear. In poker, it's called a tell. You're telling the truth. You gonna eat that?
Be my guest. So, Mr. Monaco, where do you come from? Exactly.
My dad was in the army, so we followed him around a lot. I'm an Australian New Yorker by way of East LA. So, your father was a lawyer, right?
A surgeon. My uncle was a lawyer. Marshall Morgan Whitney.
Oh my God. Just pause. My life as a criminal lawyer. I've read that like 3 times. Well, so why didn't you get into criminal law?
I did.
And?
And I preferred civil law.
See? That's a lie.
Your Mr. Stern is late. So much for your prison gut.
Wait, slow down. It's him. It's James Stern.
Earlier this evening, the body of coal tar treasurer James Stern was discovered by police in a car near the San Francisco International Airport. The executive for the Bay Area energy giant apparently took his own life with a handgun. Authorities have not yet released the suicide note found at the scene. In it, however, Stern was reportedly despondent over the fact that he was about to be fired from his high-paying job with California's 3rd largest company. Coal tar CEO Richard Ross and CFO Carl Vogler had this to say.
It's such a tragedy. James was a good man and a good friend.
An ear puller?
Was Mr. Stern going to be fired?
Yes, that's true, I'm afraid.
I don't know what you're hiding, mister. You're a lying sucker.
Rule number 9. No TV after 11 p.m.
already called the police on you people once today.
I'm not a reporter. I work for the firm that's suing Coal Tar.
No lawyers either. Do I have to let out the dogs to make my point?
I'm not a lawyer. I would like to stick my dogs on a few of them, though. Look, I was going through some of Coal Tar's records a couple of days ago, and I found this.
Amber drew that. She wants to be an artist when she grows up. Jim always tells me. Oh. You know, Jim had died of cancer. This house will be full of people wanting to help. Instead, there's just the kindness of a stranger.
The stranger doesn't think your husband killed himself.
After all your help, you can at least call me Sally.
Sally, can I see your husband's suicide note?
They said it was evidence. All they gave me was this. It's the windlass. It's used to raise the anchor. Jim and Chris were going to put it in this weekend. That was the last thing they had left to do. Jim went out to buy it when Do you really think there's a chance that Jim didn't kill himself?
Yeah. The windlass. Right before he died, James Stern bought one.
Crank for an anchor?
Peaches Loretto.
Who is Peaches Loretto?
3 years for burglary. Her husband killed himself. Told Peaches he was going to the store for a quart of ice cream. Got in his car, drove around the block, blew his brains out.
Mr. Mock.
Wait. James Stern drives to the boat store to buy the last piece of equipment he needs to build the boat with his kid, and then on the way home he kills himself? No way.
Mr. Monaco, this is a wrongful termination suit, not a criminal case.
It is if Stern was murdered.
We don't represent Mr. Stern. We represent Gleason and Berkowitz.
A faceless accounting firm that'll make, what, $4 million this year instead of $5 million? Sally Stern is broke with 2 kids.
Perhaps you should be using your time to prepare for the bar hearing.
I just graduated. I haven't even taken the bar yet.
And without their approval, you won't be able to. Muni Court Building 2, 9 a.m. Wednesday. I will be there.
The Coal Tar people are here. What Coal Tar people?
Richard Ross has finally agreed to be deposed.
Oh, the lion ear puller?
Ah, yes. Another prison theory. If I had known that incarceration were so educational, perhaps I'd have gone to San Quentin instead of Harvard.
Oh, come on. They duck you for months, and the day after Stern kills himself, they're ready to talk. Well, I have a few questions I'd like to ask.
You will limit your questions to coffee, tea, or mineral water. Mr. Ross, Hamilton Whitney.
Mr. Whitney,
Mr. Thornton.
Mr. Whitney.
if you don't mind, I'd like to get started. I've got to be in Miami tonight.
Excuse me, honey. We just came off the Coal Tar jet and we're real hungry. Can you rustle us up some sandwiches and coffee? You can stick your pretty finger in to sweeten it up.
Shall we?
Copy of Stern's suicide note from a buddy of mine at SFPD.
Great thing.
That should rate dinner and a movie.
Maybe an espresso and a muffin. Could you ask him where Stern got the gun?
Mr. Ross, what were the issues involved in the decision to terminate Coal Tar's contract with Gleason and Berkowitz?
Well, we felt that their accounting work was too conservative. They did not take advantage of certain write-offs and write-downs that would be advantageous to the company.
So you fired them because they were too honest?
Object. Mr. Ross gave his answer.
Not to my satisfaction.
Their honesty wasn't the issue.
What was the issue?
It's difficult for a layman to understand the complexities of our operation.
But as the CEO, you do. Understand them, I mean.
Of course.
Good. Then you can explain Coal Tar's relationship with a company called KSL.
Are you on a fishing expedition, Counselor?
I like fishing, but I throw the little ones back. I like to wade out deep and catch the big ones.
You're in the wrong river here, Mr. Whitney.
Can we get the judge on the phone right now?
Mr. Ross will answer.
It's a South American investment company. I believe real estate is important. So you invest.
You know, I'm not really sure.
But said just a few moments ago that you understand these complexities. That's why you get the big bucks.
Coal tar does business with companies all over the world. I personally can't keep track of them all.
You want the ear puller. I'll take those.
When Gleason and Berkowitz requested information about KSL, they were terminated. Why were they denied access to KSL?
Well, I understand it, and you'll have to check with my financial officer, Mr. Vogler. But since we own less than 20% of that company, we're not required to disclose any information.
But if you wanted Gleason and Berkowitz to be more aggressive, why would you deny them access to a possible source of further tax advantages?
Toffee, tea, or mineral water?
Hey, gal. All the office gals look like you. We ought to open an office up here.
Is it true that Coal Tar was planning to fire James Stern?
Yes.
What does Mr. Stern's employment have to do with Gleason and Berkowitz's termination?
Perhaps Mr. Ross can tell us about that.
Object, you're relevant.
Mr. Thornton, you're not in Texas. Your client will answer my questions, and you will keep your hands on your sandwich and off Miss DeMonico.
Stop. The note's typed. It's a lot easier to forge a signature than it is a whole note. What about the signature? You got one to compare it to? Yeah. See the loop on the J? It's shaky here. And the N, it's flat here. And this one has kind of a flip. My opinion, there's a good chance someone traced this one here.
God bless Mommy and Daddy and Chris and Bunny. And what's your name?
Alex.
And God bless Auntie Alex. Oh, and I hope Daddy brings me a toy when he comes home. Amen.
Very good. I love you. Sweet dreams. I told them Jim was away on a business trip. How do you tell a little girl that her daddy's never coming home? Coal tar executives? Jim was the only exec on the team. He was the one who bought those shirts. These people are like family. We have picnics, play baseball. That's what he said. Oh, yeah. Jim cared for all his people. We went to every wedding, birthday, and baby shower. That's our vacation in Aruba. What's this? I don't know. Something Jim took, I guess. It's bubble color. Doesn't look very colorful to me. Here we are. Jim's letters. Everything's like Jim. They only use James on company correspondence. Why? Oh my God. Space is torn. Wings unfold. New butterflies are born. Alex?